Well, good afternoon, everybody, to IRWD's RightScape Turf Be Gone workshop. My name is Juan Carlos Garcia. I am the Senior Landscape Water Efficiency Specialist with the district. Hopefully, we can get some great information from today's workshop and apply it at home. Let's see, before we get started, we have some staff members available, of course, to assist you with any issues that you might have. Let's get this slideshow going. A little bit of a webinar housekeeping. Let's please keep your microphones muted. Um, Submit your questions via the chat feature. Please familiarize yourselves with that chat feature. And towards the end of the class, we'll be answering some questions. We'll have a nice Q&A session, and whatever questions I don't get to, I'll make sure to answer. And everybody's going to be emailed at the conclusion of the presentation. We will make sure to address as much as we can. The presentation is being recorded and it will be posted for future references. We do have a site that has all our past workshops also on there. So when you do have a chance, please go there and take a look at those videos. We do have a webinar hotline. If you do need to talk to somebody, the number is 949-453-5656, and a staff member will be ready there. We'll be able to answer any questions you might have. Let's see. So today's workshop, look at this. So throughout the workshop today, there's going to be some questions coming up, and you're going to be able to win a conservation kit. So I do ask that maybe get a piece of paper and make some notes throughout the presentation. You can email your answers. I'm going to stop, of course, at all those slides with the questions, but email your answers to askjuan@irwd.com for a chance to win. And the more you answer correctly, the more chances you do have to win. And we are going to be notifying the winners by email. So make sure that you use the email you use for the webinar registration and try to include your full name. And if you want to, you can always put a contact number in the email. So with that said, let's see what this kit, this water conservation kit. So you're gonna have a hose nozzle, a hose timer. I really like that hose timer. I use that for my veggie beds. They have a rain gauge and a moisture sensor and a garden hose repair kit. Okay, so good luck with everybody with the garden kits, but let's go ahead and get started. We have quite a bit to talk about today. You know, one thing about these workshops, I always want to make them fun. One thing about landscaping and gardening, it should be a fun thing to do. And yes, it does take a little elbow grease and a little thought, of course, and that's what we're here to do, is just to kind of get some ideas when it comes to landscaping our homes. And today, you know, we're talking about, you know, getting rid of your grass. It's something that can be fairly easy to, depending on the methods that we use for grass removal, can be a little bit tricky and lengthy. We're going to look at, you know, what is the purpose of the landscape? What is your purpose of your landscape? What do you want your landscape to be, or how do you want it to use it? Do you want it for recreation? So we're going to take a look at all these little things. And permeable hardscapes, we're going to look at, you know, if you are going to be taking out or removing grass, what are you going to do with that area? We're going to talk about the importance of using permeable hardscapes, a little bit of selecting plant material, and we're going to go over the turf removal program just to make sure, if you are interested in participating in that program, make sure that that you read the terms and conditions and follow all the little necessary requirements for the program. So once again, hopefully we'll be able to cover all this in this short amount of time, but I'm going to just make sure to address as much as I can and not make it boring, right? So, you know, the ultimate goal with any landscape is you want to accent the home. You want to create a beautiful landscape that's thriving, going into bloom, just you know, that's attractive, but also that's water thrifty. And we're going to look at different type of plant materials we can use as well. Later on, I believe next in April, we are having the plants for the planet workshop, where we're going to get more into plant material, which is a great thing to really start to look into, and how to do a little bit of research on what's available for us as homeowners. Here we go. So why remove your lawn? You know, I'm not a lawn hater per se. I believe lawns have a purpose, have a use. If it's providing, if it's being useful, then then it's great. It's a good thing to have. But lawns do require quite a bit of maintenance and water. So how much lawn do you actually need? We want to, if you do have a lawn, there's a good way to promote healthy ecosystem by maybe getting what's called a mulching mower or something like that, and just try to be eco-friendly and using organic materials. But when we remove these areas of lawn, we want to enhance that area, right? We want to make it beautiful, want to create a beautiful landscape. Hopefully take a more sustainable approach into the landscape. And then, there's a lot of all great alternatives for grasses when it comes to looking at different plant material that you can use as either a substitute, as a lawn substitute, or once again you can take that area and create a beautiful low water use or water thrifty landscape. So with that said, here we go. Let's look at the reasons why. So reduce your landscape's water needs. Consider reducing or eliminating unused areas of lawn. Convert to what we call climate appropriate plants. Now we're going to take a look at what we mean by climate appropriate plants. We're going to look at California native, and we're also going to look at non-native climate appropriate plants, or like to call exotic species, just from all around the world that do great in California. And we'll also look at, decorative permeable hardscapes. Because when it comes to hardscapes, just a way to accent our landscapes that doesn't require maintenance, doesn't use any water, and just depending on what we use and how much we spend, we can create a beautiful landscape with a beautiful hardscape and make it permeable to air and water to allow that water to infiltrate back into the ground. So for those of you who have been joining me in these webinars, you're going to see these slides in the beginning, which I really try to just, I put in every presentation just to talk about, how much water certain plant materials need. And grass, of course, being the highest water used plant material, and we're talking more of tall fescue, cool season grass. For about every 1,000 square feet of cool season grass that you have, it requires anywhere from 25 to 35,000 gallons of water per year to keep it nice and healthy. In the summer months, we know as it starts to get warmer, we start to water more. So we're around 4,000 plus or minus gallons per month during the summer, just to maintain that grass, as I call just that green haze out there that we really don't use that area for. Now, take that same 1,000 square feet, convert it over into a climate appropriate landscape. Our water savings changes dramatically, 30 to 50% water savings right off the bat, because we're going to use plant material that are considered medium water use plant materials or moderate water users. The word drought tolerant gets thrown out there quite a bit. A lot of these plants are drought tolerant, but what we're really talking about is medium water use plants. You can see the water use per year goes down to around 15 to 20,000 gallons per year for every 1,000 square feet, right around 2,500 gallons per month during the summer months. Now, when you start to use even more low water use plant material, that water use keeps dropping and dropping, around 60 to 80% water savings, 4 to 12,000 gallons per year, 1,500 gallons per month during the summer. And this is, we're talking about climate appropriate exotic plant material. Now, one thing I really encourage you to consider is the use of California native plants. Now, sometimes when people say California native plants, people think of cactuses and sticks and rocks out there. Now, we're talking about beautiful, you know, we beautiful plant material that can be used in a traditional landscape sense, but that's native to our areas and native to our state, of course, and actually native to our local areas. We're going to look at later. But when you start incorporating California native plants in the landscape, you can see the water savings is there, 80% plus water savings. The benefits are that we start to build habitat for pollinators. I mean, look at that third bullet point, fully or partially summer dormant. I know that my native area that I have, and I have different plant material all over my landscape, but I practice what's called hydrozoning. And later on, that's going to be a word that comes up. That's a very important term in landscaping. This is basically grouping plants together with similar water needs and overall care. So my native area, I maybe watered it once a good deep soaking a month during the summer, just kind of more of a wash down. But once they're established, they require little or no water or supplemental water once they are established. I mean, you can have a full evergreen landscape, you can have deciduous plants, you can have a traditional landscape per se as far as design wise by incorporating California native plants. I mean, we have beautiful selections of plants, and right now it is planting season. We're still there. Okay, with that, let's get into the turf be gone part, which is, when we thinking about considering removing parts of our lawn, of our grass areas, how are we going to do that? What are some of the methods we're going to look into? Before we look into those methods, it's important to know, well, what type of grass do I have? Is it going to be easy? Is it going to be hard to get rid of it? So it's important to familiarize yourselves with these different grass types, how they grow, and that'll make it, a lot easier when it comes to removing. And we're going to look at different types of removal, everything from eco-friendly methods. Well, most of it all, it's all eco-friendly. That's one thing I do believe in is eco-friendly landscaping. We're gonna talk about the pros and cons, of course, of herbicides and stuff like that. But as you know, there's a lot of news out there when it comes to the use of grass killers or weed killers and so forth. So just like anything else, be safe. Always practice safety in the landscaping, and make sure you read labels with any kind of product you ever use. So what type of grass do I have? Before removing your lawn, it's important to identify, do I have a cool season grass? Do I have a warm season grass? What is the difference? And this is going to help determine how I'm going to remove that lawn area. Well, cool season grasses, I found this great um, picture that has it's a great way to show how cool season grass grows throughout the year. Cool season grass is the highest water use plant in the landscape. We're talking about tall fescue, fine fescue, marathon, perennial ryegrasses. You marathon one, marathon two. They label them and they say, oh, they're water thrifty, but overall, cool season grass do need quite a bit of water. As you can see, they thrive right in the spring. You see the root systems really starts to stretch out, and in the summer, they start to really they want to utilize less water because they want to go into that slow grade, but in that slow growth rate. But what do? We kick up that watering to make it grow in. Or you start to put in fertilizers and so forth just to keep it growing. So it just requires quite a bit throughout the year. As you can see in the fall, it also thrives, and it thrives well in the winter. It is a cool season grass. So in the summertime, we're just trying to keep it viable and growing, and then we're out there mowing. So if you do have a lawn, one thing I do recommend, and if you want to keep it and you have a cool season grass, raise up those mow heights. The higher the blade is, the longer that blade is, it actually will use less water, because the more you trim it down or mow it down or scalp it, it stresses out that plant, and then it'll make it stretch out. And then, that's we start getting into more problems. One thing about cool season grasses also is that, you know, when the seeds, you get that tuft of grass. So growth period, spring and fall, dorm in the summer. This is why it needs lots. So cool season grass grows in tufts. One seed equals one tuft, easier to eliminate. When it dies out, that's why we have to go out there and reseed or get a new um, piece of sod and put it out there. It's just one of those things where when you start having dieback, you have to try to figure out a way to get that growing again. It's usually by reseeding the area again or putting in, once again, some sod out there. Now, warm season grasses are considered moderate water users. They're not they go from that moderate edge to a little bit high, but not as much as a cool season grass. They thrive in the summer. That's one thing about warm season grasses: Bermuda, St. Augustine, zoysia, kikuyu, centipede grasses. They thrive in that heat. They love the heat they do require water, but not as much, once again, as cool season grass. But they do start to slow down and go dormant when we start getting into the cooler months. And typically, that's when they get scalped, and then the seeding come in. People start to seed. They put out perennial ryegrass, and then you have to water a lot to get that perennial ryegrass to seed, which can make you possibly go over your water budget during those cooler months as the budgets drop due to weather and climate, of course. So growth period is in the spring to summer. It really thrives in that heat, and you can see the dormancy period. So it does use less water than cool season grass. Sometimes people say, well, it's not cool season grass. It's a little tougher, but once again, it is more water thrifty. One thing about about warm season grasses, it is tougher to get rid of. They spread by right there when you're looking at this picture here. I got my little pointer. These are the stolons, and as they spread and travel across the ground, you can see the roots coming out. They'll just dig in and root. And once again, I was saying about this grass being a little harder to kill is because if you're out there chopping and digging, you start chopping these little into little bits, and here's a whole new plant, and there's another one, and they can just keep growing. They like to burrow into the ground, into the soil, and you'll see them come up through the cracks. One thing about when when uh, when you're doing or considering turf removal, you always got to consider life after turf removal, because there is going to be some things that we need to do to just maintain that area, because you might see grass come up here and there. How are we going to get rid of it? How are we going to take care of that? So we'll talk about that a little bit later. So there we go. Let's see here. Oh, wow. Okay, so we are at the slide once again with the win this kit. So the first question that's being asked to win this kit is name two types of cool season grass. Name two types of warm season grass. And then email your responses to ask1@irwd.com. Once again, this presentation will be up and recorded, but if you can just jot down some little notes about this and get those answers and responses into that email address for a chance to win a conservation kit. You can answer two questions. You can answer more questions. Uh, it's up to you. Like I said, the more you answer, the more you have a chance to win. So I'm going to leave it up here for a few more seconds. So name two types of cool season grass, name two types of warm season grass. In the subject line, you could just put in types of grasses and then just email it over to me. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, here we go. Let's move on. Methods for grass removal. So now we're going to start looking at all the fun ways to remove those grass areas. Now, like I said, we're going to look at every way that people remove lawns. Now, some of them might look a little too much for you, and I totally understand, but it's just more consideration. Where is that grass you're going to get rid of? Is it in the front or is it in the back? Of course, being in the back makes it a lot easier. When it's in the front, then you really have to look at the method you're going to be removing it, in case you might have issues out there, whether it be with neighbors or HOAs, with sometimes the way things look when you're out there doing some removal and things. But let's take a look at different methods. So one of the methods is, you can kill your lawn by what we call solarization. Just basically using the sun's rays to just kind of cook it off. It's a chemical free, of course, way of getting rid of that grass. And you're able to turn that area into any type of landscape, whether a flower bed or vegetable bed or landscaping. Um, Solarization is an excellent way to get rid of grass, weeds, insects, nematodes. Um, but one thing also is, when you do solarize, when you are doing any of these methods, um, you know, when you see there, get rid of or kill, insects, nematodes, there are beneficial insects and organisms in our soils that need certain materials to thrive, and we want to keep that good balance. Not only do we want to get rid of that grass and stuff, but we also want to soils. I think later on I'm going to be talking a little bit about building your soils and things that we can do to make the soil better for our planting areas. uh, the one thing about killing your lawn with the sun, right, it has to be sunny and hot. um, it's a message, a benefit to do 2 layers of plastic sheets and put a little barrier in between, or some rocks in between, to kind of create this little, like an insulation gap, to get it even hotter. Black is preferably the color of the plastic if you're going to use it. Bricks, rocks, stakes, whatever, to keep it down. Mulch, water, wheelbarrow, shovel, rake. So one thing about killing your lawn using the sun is, we do recommend that you mow, cut, or scalp it as short as possible, and water it very, very deeply. So that's one thing, is you want to cut it down and water it. Next, you want to just cover it with some plastic sheets, preferably black. Extend the plastic out beyond the edges and let that sun do its job. Now, you can see there's a nice little consider note there to make the process even more effective. Spread a second layer of plastic over the first. So once again, these will be, this presentation will be up to refer to this at a later time. So just a good eco-friendly way to remove your lawn, solarization. Next, anchor the edges with rocks, bricks, stakes, whatever you can, just to make sure it does not move. Now, solarization, remove that plastic, clear away any dead grass or leave it in place. You know, one thing also, if you want to remove that dead grass, use it as compost. Consider watering that area again to see if anything grows or comes up. To, you know, just put it back and seal it up and keep the process going. So benefits, it's efficient, it's inexpensive, minimal labor. Well, not too much. I mean, it is going to require a little elbow grease, but yes, we have minimal environmental impact. Dead grass can be composted. The challenges are that it can take 2 months or more to completely kill off the grass, weeds, etc. And of course, may be difficult in shady areas or unattractive. Oh, here's one of my fun. One thing about what we call method of removing is smothering your lawn, or what we call sheet mulching or lasagna gardening. I love that picture there. Um, Soil improvement. And one thing about lasagna gardening is you're just starting to create layers out there to break down that grass and kill it. So it is a layered mulch system. The materials break down. I love how it says when worms move in. When you see worms and other little critters in your soil, you're doing good. You're doing very good. The worms are also helping you till around and eat some of that material and make beautiful natural fertilizers for your soil. So it begins to soften and underneath all those layers. So let's take a look at. So one thing, of course, you know, if you're going to be doing the sheet mulching, is you got to measure out that area and how much materials you're going to need as far as cardboard, newspaper, overlapping. Yeah, you need to make sure you have enough compost or manure. Now, manure is there. I'm not a big fan of using manure because not only does it smell, but there can be a lot of weed seeds and so forth. So if you are considering manure, make sure it's composted. You can have composted manure, so it's broken down completely and hopefully free of weed seed. So sheet mulching steps, preparing the site. So once again, we're going to mow, cut, or scalp on as short as possible. One thing you can do is add natural fertilizers, add soil amendments, right on the very bottom. Blood meal. Blood meal is very high in nitrogen. Bone meal, great phosphorus. Compost, it's a great soil conditioner. It's a great pH buffer. Soak in with water before you cover and start the natural process of decomposition, right? So we're going to scalp it. We're going to put some natural fertilizer, some organic material out there. We're going to soak it down, and then we're going to start covering it up. There we go. You can see that person there covering it up with cardboard. You see the other person has some newspaper around some of the plants. But the main thing about doing the sheet mulching is once you do this, once you cover the lawn and you make your layers and you wet everything down. Here we go. Layer with 3 to 4 inches of organic matter and mulch, compost, manure. Once again, we talked about the manure, wood mulch, and then repeat if needed. Make more layers if needed. But once it's all done and covered, you can see this area here was sheet mulched, and you get some nice mulch out there on the very top. You can't even tell that there's a bunch of layers there, getting rid of that grass. But the thing about you doing sheet mulching is you can start planting right away. So start punching holes through that material and start your planting. So benefits, minimal labor. There is labor required. Does not require removal of grass. No, we're going to leave it right in place. Retention of water and nutrients. All that grass and all that matter underneath is going to start to improve our soil structure and increase that soil life. It is a slower method, about 3 to 6 months for the grass to die out, but once again, it's underneath all that material, slowly dying away. Um, it's not practical for steep slopes, so just consider how, it is. And you might need to, as you can see, these people here, they dug out around those edges close to the sidewalks or the hardscape areas where you're going to start, and you maybe create a little slope um, to get that material so it's not just bunching up over your hardscape material. So it does take a little planning and care, but just once again, it's a great way to smother your lawn just by doing sheet mulching. Well, here's the method that I use. Physically remove your lawn. So it is the fastest way to remove your lawn. Do the work yourself or hire workers. Removing the sod generally removes the top layer of soil as well. So one thing I did when I removed my grass like this physically, I turned everything upside down and then removed all that good old soil and my grass, whatever was left. I make sure to compost that. So just you want to make sure you try to keep as much of your natural soil that you have there, because that soil, once again, you're going to try to work it. What you can also do is you can just turn those sections over and let the grasses stay there. But once again, earlier we talked about warm season grass. Warm season grass, when you're chopping into it like this, there could be bits that might be digging into the ground, and it could potentially be other plants. Let's see. So it is difficult. It can be difficult. It is very labor intensive. Um, it's a little bit more trickier for Bermuda, St. Augustine, Zoysia. But my area of lawn that I took out, I had a mixture of, call it a salad, really, of more of a lawn. It was just a mixture of everything from Bermuda, cool season grasses, weeds, everything, you name it. So little elbow grease goes a long way. So make sure to water the area well if you're thinking about removing it physically. Use a pick or shovel to remove. And once again, you can always use that grass or that soil to create mounds and little low areas. So we're just kind of grading the area. Later on, we're going to talk about some of the requirements for the turf removal program. If you are interested in that, some of the features that have to be incorporated into those areas where you are going to remove the grass. Use the grass for compost, and once again, you will need to manually remove grass or weeds as it grows back, and that's something that I do still to date. I've removed my grass in my front yard. Must have been 6, 7, 8 years now. Gosh, I can't remember. And from time to time, some things come up, and bend over, pull it out, or use some vinegar. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So physically remove your lawn. Now, one thing also that I do see quite people use is a sod cutter. You can rent a hand push or power sod cutter, as you can see here in this picture. They're out there just removing that in layers. So once again, it just makes it a little trickier with warm season grasses, and also you got to make sure you mark where all your sprinklers are at, so you don't run over them. So you could use great, just cuts right through. So physically remove your lawn. Benefits: way to remove turf, remove the sod. It makes great compost. If done manually, great workout. Yeah, it is labor intensive. You do have a chance of that turf regrowth, and this is why, once again, you are cutting into there. Every time this gets chopped, you're just making more little plants. So take time, remove as much of the rhizomes, the below ground runners, and the stolons, the ground runners that might be dug into the soil during the removal process. Right. Sorry about that. Let's see. Now, when it comes to spraying your lawn, you really got to consider nowadays all the effects of synthetic chemicals um, in use in the landscape. So, one thing about spraying it is you can use good old vinegar, but one thing about the vinegar, you got to use what we call horticultural vinegar. It is 20% acidic. It is very acidic. Your common household vinegar is around 5%. I know people that have used regular vinegar, and sometimes it's not a good success, but you got to use this horticultural vinegar. I mean, it's really great. Um, it is safe for natural, and it's just a great alternative to herbicides that can be highly toxic. So you can see there they have the spray bottle, the vinegar, and they're adding some soap to it, some good old eco-friendly soap to use to make sure it sticks onto the plant material. And that's one thing also. You want to make sure to apply it if you can on a very hot day and let it work itself. It's going to take, it might take some time. And one thing about vinegar, it is non-selective. Be careful on where you spray because not only will it kill off your lawn, it'll kill off weeds, but um, it might kill off some the plant material that might be around the area. So be careful, of course. Now, one thing that's been it's a new technologies that have been emerging. So using steam to kill off grass, weeds, and weed seeds. One thing about steam is there are companies now that do this. Actually, at the district, we are using steam for weed abatement. One thing about the steam is, it's completely eco-friendly, right? Because we are using water. The water, the steam reaches high temperatures, and you're just moving that steamer right over your plant material until you'll see it start to wither, and you'll see, and it'll start to smell like cooked vegetables out there, because you're basically just boiling and cooking that plant material, and that'll kill everything from the plant down to the roots, and also a lot of the weed seed in that area. So it is a new technology that's emerging. It's being used out there quite a bit. Um, Try to look into it, see what companies might be offering that kind of service right now. But it's just one of those things that I do see um, as a great opportunity to use something very eco-friendly, steam, to remove our grasses. So that really the main things when it comes to removing your grasses. You can see there's a lot of different methods. I myself used the good old, dig it out physically. If you want it gone, you can get it rid of it in a day or two. So, okay, now we are at the second question for winning a kit. And the questions for this section is, what is lasagna gardening? Just shoot me over a little explanation. And in your opinion, what is the best way to get rid of your lawn? So we talked about all those different methods. What do you think is the best way? And if you want to have a little chat and conversation, I would love to hear some comments, and I will respond to you. So email your responses over once again to askjuan@irwd.com. Okay, I'm going to leave it here for a few more seconds. What is lasagna gardening? In your opinion, what is the best way to get rid of your lawn? Okay, so now we're getting to the part of, what, so if we are considering moving that lawn, what are we going to use that landscape for? What are some ideas that we might have for those areas? Let's Is it more aesthetics, pleasing to the eye, of course? We always want it to look beautiful, not only to use water-friendly plant material, but for it to be attractive. You see a water feature here. One thing about water features is you want them hopefully on a recirculating system, just to get that water moving back and forth. But just like a pool, just like a spa, when you have a water feature, it is going to evaporate, and you always got to consider possible leaks in the future. One thing about, and when we're thinking about doing a landscape project, is to really consider taking what we call the watershed approach. That's just thinking in gardening in a holistic way to create a healthy landscape. We want to create healthy living soil by incorporating more organics into it, mulches, compost. We want to capture rainwater and hopefully use it as a resource. That's one thing about the watershed approach. When we do have rainwater, capture it. Get a rain barrel, get something to capture it in and use it in your landscape. And when you run out of that water, then you have hopefully some kind of irrigation system there in place. Use of climate appropriate plants, more use of native plants if possible, as you can see here, this picture. Uh, Efficient irrigation, if you do have a backup system for irrigation, make sure it is kept up. Maintenance when it comes to sprinkler systems, because they can waste quite a bit of water when they're not maintained properly. We're creating this harmony with local ecosystems. We're bringing in beneficial insects, and we're bringing in all these beneficial organisms in the soil that'll make our landscape healthy. And we're protecting our watershed by being eco-friendly, by creating these little swales and berms and low points to capture the water. One thing about water is we want to keep it on the landscape and prevent it from running off into the streets, into our storm drains, because when that happens, it starts to pick up pollutants, and then we start to pollute our ocean. So, create a sustainable landscape that is maybe contoured to capture that rainwater, irrigation water, keep it on site, and protect our overall surroundings. And believe it or not, you are creating a habitat sanctuary. You are bringing in all these natural um, insects and birds and everything into our landscapes. Okay, let's and relaxation. You just want a quiet, peaceful place to breathe and relax and read a book. That's one thing that my wife really wanted me to do when doing our landscape. Is she wanted an area to go sit out there and enjoy the peacefulness and quietness away from the kids, of course. So consider creating these little areas, and by creating these areas, we're actually creating what are called, our living out rooms. This is very exaggerated, as you can see, but isn't this great? I mean, what a great feature to have outside. So not only a fireplace, but there's uh, a nice brick oven. I mean, just fantastic, a wood-fired oven. So, is this going to take a lot of maintenance? No. It's going to take water? No. I'm a big believer in, if you want something as far as hardscape materials, to spend your money on the hardscape materials. Plant material, we can always plant small, and those plants will acclimate better and grow into that landscape. So, always think about those areas outside. Can they be utilized for something else rather than just a green haze of grass that's just taking up a lot of water, uh, fertilizers, you name it. Consider shade. One thing is now we have beautiful arbors and canopies and umbrellas, and even use trees to create these shade effects. So, what are you going to use that area for? It's always a thing when it comes to landscaping. Are you going to have an edible garden? You can create beautiful living fences. That fence here, this fence to the left is actually done with apples, apple trees, and pear trees. They lend themselves well to SBA work, where you can create these beautiful living fences. This is look at this beautiful edible garden. Now, when it comes to edible gardens, you really got to look at the water use, because yes, can an edible garden take quite a bit of water? It sure can, depending on how much you garden. Are you doing full cycles? Are you doing winter crops, summer crops? Are you doing spring? You're gonna kind of get that area ready. Um, and I saw a comment come up about dog friendly and pet friendly. One thing about landscapes is we know that what dogs can do to a landscape. So I do recommend, if you have a lot of dogs, and especially big dogs, take a look. I've been finding a lot of information online on how to landscape for your pets. So there's some great research you can do online to get some great ideas from pet owners and landscaping tips. Building a healthy soil. So this will be quick little section, but this is one thing that's important, right? We're removing the grass. We might have some soil out there that might need a little work. What can we, what kind of soil do we have? Is it too much clay? Is it too sandy? One thing about clay is I love clay, because clay, you can always work it and amend it to make, create this beautiful soil. It's understanding what are all the little components of soil, whether it's rather rock, organic matter, water. You do want it to be drainable. You want it to be porous, to have good oxygen in there. But the thing is, you want to have organisms. You want your soil to be alive. The more we use synthetic pesticides and chemicals, we're killing off all these beautiful, beneficial organisms that are thriving in our soils. Um, there's beneficial bacteria out there. There's beneficial fungi. As you can see here, the mycorrhizal fungi that creates this great relationship with the roots and the plants that help the plants take in water and nutrients and keep the plant healthy. So that's one thing also too, when you're out there gardening, try not to till or move a lot of that soil. Um, Especially when you're having natives and roots out there, because all this starts to um, you see all these little highways of roots and where they're getting their nutrients. And if we start to go in there and break them up and till them around, we're just sometimes killing off what's going on in our soil. We want that beautiful. You want the life in there. You want the little animals, the worms, insects, the microbes doing their keeping our plants healthy. When we practice good watering practices, when we have good, healthy soils, we're going to have healthy plants. And once try to maintain a clean garden. That's one thing, is try to remove weeds, try to remove anything that might be out there. Don't pile up your soils on your stems or your branches or your trunks of your plants. Make sure you just try to do as best as you can for your plants. Conditioners, we talk about amendments. Just plain and simple. I think the best soil amendment we have out there, or conditioner, is good old compost. I mean, compost, it's great for sandy soils. It's great for clay soils. I'm not going to really get into pH, but when it comes to pH and plants, you want to have that nice uh, middle-ish, like right on 6-7 for plants, which what they really like. Um, Clay soils can be more alkaline. The more organic material we add to it, we start to make it more acidic. So we have to bring down that alkalinity of the soil, which retains a lot of iron and other stuff for that plants utilize. So once again, I don't want to get too much into it. um, Now, mulch. I can't stress enough the benefits of mulch. Um, One thing, mulching my area. So I'm out there cleaning and removing all these weeds and getting that area prepped. What I like to do is use good old newspaper as a weed barrier. Use 3-4 layers of newspaper and just mulch right on top of it. You know that the water's going to get through. Over time, it's going to break down the mulch and use it and become part of your soil. So it's actually going to benefit your soil. So also too, when it comes to mulch, I stick with more natural mulches. I stay away from mulches that have dyes and colors, unless you know that they are eco-friendly dyes and pigments that they add to those that mulch. And you can always buy it in bulk, depending if you go to a landscape yard. You can buy it by the cubic yard, which makes it a lot easier to purchase and also put out. You can, instead of just buying bags at a higher rate. Now, when it comes to land features, I talked a little bit about having a permeable hardscape, allowing the water to infiltrate into the ground, move through those layers, and get back into our groundwater systems. And just, not only is that water being cleaned by the soil, but it's also being spread out nice and even and going back to where it belongs instead of running off. So consider having, if you're going to do pavers, this is some flagstone on sand. You can just make sure it's open. One thing is, on the rebate program, it does have certain requirements as far as spacing. When you're using pavers, you got to have about a 2-inch spacing between all those pavers. So it makes sense where you're using flagstone and stuff like that. If you are thinking about using pavers for an area and that you're wanted to qualify for the program, you do got to make sure if you follow the spacing requirements for the turf removal program. And there are certain requirements as far as how much hardscape you can convert that area too. So there are certain requirements of if you are going to remove grass, how much has to stay landscape, how much can be converted into hardscape, where permeable hardscape, and how many plants you need for every certain square footage. And this is all information you can find on the program web pages. Porous pavers are great. You can see here they're just filling it in, the spacing with sand, and the water is going to be do that. Decomposed granite's another great way to go. The only thing I do caution, just be careful when it comes to DG or decomposed granite. Is it is attractive, it's versatile, but if you have wood floors and you're walking across it and that gets into your home, you're going to start scratching up those floors. So I actually had an area of DG that I had to remove because of that going on. So just always be a little careful when you're planning out any of these landscape areas. Rainwater. We talked a little about rainwater harvesting. If you can, collect that rainwater. There is a great rebate program for rain barrels. You can have the kids create some rain barrels, but rain capture, there's quite a bit of water that you can collect from that roof. And there's a lot of great rain barrels that are rather attractive. When it comes to rainwater capture, if you can, divert those gutters into the landscape. It's another great way to do it. Now you can see this landscape here has this nice little dry creek, as I like to call it, or a nice little dry river. Some of the requirements for the turf rebate program is you do have to create some kind of swales or basins or contour the land so it can um, capture rainwater or irrigation water. That's some of the requirements for the turf removal program. Um, Basins, swales, or rain gardens are simple landscaping features used to collect, slow, infiltrate that water into the ground. Here's some, you can see this is a big dry creek or a dry little pond, as you can see. Beautiful boulder work, and I'm looking at this going, okay, what really costs the big bucks here was all these boulders, this and the other ones. This is what you're spending really your money on. The plant material, this is all very low water use. There's some natives mixed in with non-natives, but very low water use. Plant material, you start off small, here's your investment right there. And of course, shaping and contouring of that area, whatever labor that is. Create rock gardens, that's one of the things you can do as far as the turf rebate program goes. Contoured, so this landscape you can see here, which is graded, you can see it slopes down into these little areas where you're able to collect water, when it rains. So that's an easy way to get that landscape to meet the requirements. It's contouring it, just grading it. Okay, wow. So now we're at this other section here with the kit. So right here, just name a type of soil conditioner or amendment. Easy stuff. Refer back to the slides earlier. And name some benefits of permeable hardscapes. What are the benefits of having a permeable hardscape? And once again, email the responses at askwand@irwd.com. Okay, guys, we are on the stretch. Finish this off and then we'll get to some questions. So when it comes to climate appropriate plants, now this I'm going to move through rather quickly. Just remember that we do have a workshop coming up. It's not until April, but if you have time, but I know there is some a workshop on our recorded workshop. It's called Plant Like a Local, where it gets into uh, climate appropriate plants more in depth. So please take a look at that if you have some questions on plant material. But when it comes to climate appropriate plants, we're looking at California friendly or climate appropriate plants. What are California native plants? Is there a difference? You better believe it. So when we look at, where we're situated on this planet, you can see all the Mediterranean climates. We are, yes, California is not a desert completely. Remember that we do have deserts in California, but we have we have forests, we have deserts, we have coastal lands, we have, just a beautiful array of different climates throughout our state in these different plant communities. When it comes to native plants, that's one thing that's important to really consider, is which plant community do we live in. But as you can see here, so plants that'll thrive in all these areas around the world, these Mediterranean climates, will thrive in California. So when we say climate appropriate or exotic species, we're talking about just plants from all around the world that are that are adapted. And I bet that most of the plants that you have already in your landscape are what we consider climate appropriate plant material. That's one thing, is that a lot of the material that gets used in the landscape, like Raphael lepis indica, which is Indian hawthorn, that is considered a moderate water use plant. Strawberry trees, different plant materials. So you can see this is just straight from Western Garden Book. If you guys recognize this, here we are in Irvine, and we are what we consider climate zone 22 to 24. So all the different influences that we have. But when it comes to plant material, we'll take a look at. So here we have California friendly plants. So these are just plants from all around the world that do great. You can see here, this is a crepe myrtle. Beautiful tree, could also be a shrub, but just gorgeous, 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 very deep rooted. They're moderate water users. They do need water when it comes to California friendly plants, and they're easy to adapt. When we start looking at native plants now, it is kind of a different beast or different animal. They're beautiful plants, but they require a little different care compared to our climate appropriate exotic species. One thing is that we have to start looking at what we call our plant communities. We are considered coastal sage scrub, Irvine and the surrounding cities. So we have all these beautiful plants that fall into this range here. You can see all these different plant communities in California: coastal sage, desert, grassland, conifer, riparian. Everything. You have wetlands. So it's about knowing which plants fall into those groupings and utilizing that in our landscapes. Ooh, let me go back here. So here we have ceanothus. What a beautiful California lilac here. This is a low horizontal growing ceanothus. But the benefit of native plants is not only are we building habitat for pollinators, but look at this part: fully or partially summer dormant. And they require little and no water once established. Now, this right here, I want you to take a look. This graph is actually water loss in Irvine. So this is weather data from our central weather station. And as you can see here, this is just measuring what we call ETO, evapotranspiration, or basically water, how it's lost in evaporation, and transpiration is how it's lost through the plant. So we actually have a weather station that's measuring that, and it's sitting on top of the highest water use plant, which is cool season grass. So it sits there all year just measuring water loss throughout the year. And as you can see here, the bell curve, right? Of course, in the cooler months, it's low. So cool season grass will lose around 2.5 inches during these months, but as it gets hotter and hotter, it loses more water and we have to irrigate more. So when it comes to that, let's take a look at this. So here is our rain pattern when it does rain in California, right? Or in our Southern California. This is how much water a cool season grass requires throughout the year. As you can see, we're not giving it back all the water it lost. We're only going to give it back about 80% of what it lost throughout the year. Warm season grass, you can see there, it does use a little bit less water than cool season grass, so it is considered a moderate water user to a little bit high. But then when we start looking at climate appropriate plants, once again, you can see how the water use follows that same bell curve, right? But these are more exotic climate appropriate plants. But what do you think natives are going to do? Well, natives are smart, right? They are acclimated to our area, so they follow that rain pattern. So when we do have times of drought, when we do have dry winter season, as you know, it's been dry. We've had some few rains here and there. I have actually gone out there and watered by hand during these times. Go out there and give a good soaking. Why? Because we've had, a little bit of water here and there. We did have some good rain showers here that'll help us supplement, but we are trying to make up a little bit of that. So as you can see here, the curve is different. So while climate appropriate exotic plant species require water during the summer months, a lot of our natives don't want that summer water. Actually, there are a lot of these natives where if you do water them in the summer, there's a big chance that you could be killing them off. So zoning. So this is why this term is very important. Just grouping plants with similar water needs. My native area is towards the front of the house, so I know that all those plants towards the front are all natives and they require that special care compared to all the other plants that are around the other areas of my home that are exotic species. I love every single plant you can think of. I'm the type of person that sees something that they like, I buy it, I come home and I try to figure out where I'm going to plant it or make a little spot for it. So always consider that. So lawn substitutes, there's great lawn substitutes. You can see here, this is a picture of what? A synthetic grass. Now, they're making it better, but one thing is I'm not a big proponent when it comes to synthetic grasses. There's a lot of pros and cons when it comes to synthetic lawns. So just if you are interested in looking at it, just do some research first. But I rather put plant material. Now, here's a fantastic ground or lawn substitute that's come about in the last, I would say, 5, 6, 7 years. Carapia, new low water ground cover developed in Japan, developed in drought conditions. I mean, we're talking about it uses a third of the water that a typical cool season grass uses. I mean, there's a lot of studies out there. It's just a fantastic, innovative plant. It is not invasive. It doesn't go into seed. Um, this is a customer in Irvine that I was doing a survey on, and as I'm driving up, he had the greenest landscape on the block. But as I started getting closer, I noticed, I'm like, hey, that's not grass. What is that? Until I got really close. And I noticed that it was Carapia. So I had a nice little chat with the homeowner. And yeah, he discussed how he planted Carapia. And this Carapia was planted in sod. You can see this is a neighbor's house, right? You just put the berry, you can see the grass there. So um, lots of water, a third of the water. And you still have that beautiful green, as the mat you call it out there. Here's a homeowner that used plugs. So the Carapia, you can buy it in a tray of plugs. Uh, Here it is. You plant it on, it has to be bare soil. So the homeowner here planted it. They recommend that you plant it every 18 inches on center. You can see this homeowner kind of cheated a little bit, but this is 3 weeks after planting, 6 weeks after planting, 9 weeks after planting. You can see how it's really aggressive. It is a trailer, right? It's going to spread out. So that's one thing that it'll do. So if you have a bare spot, cut it out and it'll just grow right back. We actually have a demonstration at the district that we took the walkway planters and did Carapia. So you can see here in July 2020, you can see the area was cleared off and the Carapia was planted. And here we have October 2020. You can see just grew in, took over that area. So if you're interested in taking a look at it, take a nice little drive over to the district. Of course, practice safe practices out there and go walk around, take a look. Great. We have a great demonstration garden close to the building. We also have a beautiful as well. Our other ground covers like Diamondia, Creeping Time, and keep going. There's a lot more out there. So, okay, everybody, we are down to the nitty gritty. It is the last question for the day, or the last questions for the day. What is the difference in water requirements for California native plants versus exotic climate appropriate plants? So that you can take a look at some of the slides. And of course, you can name a few benefits of California native plants. What are some of the benefits? Email me those responses at askwanted@irwd.com. Okay, when it comes to the residential incentive programs that we have, We do have the DIY turf removal program. So the turf removal program receive $2 per square foot of every square foot of grass that you remove. But once again, it had that those areas have to be replaced back with a water thrifty landscape, and make sure that you meet those caveats. You are capped at a maximum of 5,000 square feet, 250 square feet minimum. One thing with any of these programs, make sure you read the terms and conditions and do not remove any grass before you get approval. You know, we do have sometimes where homeowners or do the project and then apply for the program, and then they get told, sorry, you know, you do not qualify. Uh, this program is a regional program. The uh, Metropolitan Water District, you know, they do look at all these applications, and they will evaluate them and either approve them or deny them. So they have the final say on what's going to be approved and what's not. So make sure you read the terms and conditions and all the little requirements when it comes to the program. Myself, right now, I am enrolled in the turf removal program. I participated in the turf removal program, like I said, many years ago for my front yard, but now I'm doing the back. My kids are getting older. They just wanted a little piece of grass on the back so they can do their little camping and playing back there, but the rest is going to be gone, and I'm going to be doing a beautiful, my wife wants a succulent garden, so that's what we're doing. The great rebates going on, outdoor rebates, turf removal, of course. There's smart timer program, what's smart controllers. Right now we have a pressure regulating spray body program, rotating spray nozzles, rain barrels, soil moisture sensors, and you name it. Indoor, of course, there is still rebates for clothes washers and toilets. We have great, so on our rightscapenow.com website, you can go there to not only look at what classes are coming up, but also links to the videos, so I will show you in a bit. So our upcoming workshops, we have the Don't Spring a Leak workshop coming up in March. We're going to talk, this is going to be a great workshop where we're going to address indoor and outdoor water conservation. It's going to be hosted by many of our staff. We're going to be looking at billing and variances and you name it. Any questions you might have, this will be a great class for you to come to. Hopefully we can help you out with anything you might need as far as information with the district. Plants for the Planet coming up, of course, in April. And in May, we have Sprinkler Spruce Up for Fix a Leak Week. Plants for the Planet for Earth Day, and the EPA Water Smart Fix a Leak Week is coming up in May, and we will be having the Sprinkler Spruce Up workshop. We have our rightscaperesources.com website, where we have, call this our great landscaping gardening website. Not only does it have great plant searches, but also great information on landscaping, slopes, you name it. Okay, if you have any questions about today or in the future, you can always email me at askjuan@irwd.com. We get some great questions that come in, and hopefully, not hopefully, and one thing is that your question that you submit could be featured in our Pipelines newsletter. If you are a reader of our Pipelines newsletter, you will see the Ask Juan section where all those questions actually come from customers, and hopefully try to address it as best as possible. So here's some more numbers for you. And with that said, let me just, I want to show you this. Here we go. So I wanted to take you to, here we go. Oh, perfect. Here is our rightscapenow.com website. So on this rightscapenow.com website, if you hover over events and classes, you click on it, and that'll take you to all the upcoming events. And you just click on here to sign up. But if you keep scrolling down, here are the links to our past classes. Now, I am going to be emailing everybody with links to all these sites and to the videos. And you can see here, hopefully it'll pop up. Here we go. So here's a lot of our past webinars. Control Your Controller, the new year starts now. Ocean Minded Landscaping, the Plant Like a Local, California Friendly, And then the sprinkler spruce up. Oh, here's sprinkler spruce up. If you can't wait till May, you can actually view the class right here. But there's also, we've done many workshops with the UCCE Master Gardeners of Orange County, which are also going to be posted on here. We have Be a Garden Investigator, we have Edible Gardening, and we have a composting webinar that we partnered with them, and they're going to be posted on here very shortly. So be on the lookout for that. So once again, this is our RightScapeNow.com website. For information on rebates, you can click on residential rebates, and here you go. Here's all the links to the rebates, whether it be outdoor or indoor. Controllers, nozzles, rain barrels, cisterns, uh, turf removal, drip irrigation, smart hose bib nozzle. A controller and pressure regulating bodies. I mean, this is a new one that just came up. It's in regards to the new state regulations in California about spray bodies. Now they have to have pressure compensating components inside. Here is our RightScape resources.com website. This is a fantastic website to go and do plant searches. One thing I love when I'm on here, you can also look at different garden tours, galleries. But one thing I love about this plant search is you can do what's called a guided search and look for specific plants that fall under the criteria you're looking for. So what am I looking for? Maybe I'm looking for shrubs and I want them to be in full sun. I want them to be about 3 to 6 feet. Am I worried about the flower color? No, I'm going to select any. I have clay soil. When do I want them to bloom? Anytime. Here we go. So now they're going to add a bunch of plant material that falls under that criteria. I selected. If you see this little symbol here, it is a California native plant. So have fun plant hunting on this page. It's a great place to stay on here for a few hours just looking at plant material. And of course, we have a great partnership with the California Native Plant Society. Right now, one thing I love about cmps.org is on this page here, not only can you learn about natives, but if you go down, they have a great Cowscape garden planner. So this is actually, here we go. You can go in here and start, find the perfect native plants for your garden in just 4. You can start doing this here, and it'll take you plants that'll do great in your landscape. And then another thing also is there is what's called the Cowscape here. Looks like my keyboard went out. There's cowscape.org. Here we go. One thing about the cowscape.org website for plant searches is that when you do see something you like and you click on it, first thing is you can type in your zip code or your full address, and it'll basically give you a list of plants that are native to your local area, which is great. But after you find that selection, if you see something you like, you can click on that plant and you can actually see the nurseries that carry this. So you can click on here, and here are all the nurseries that carry that specific plant. And you can start looking here, and we can start to see nurseries in our area carry that plant. So let's see, I don't think I have anything here. Of course, let's see, here's Moosa Creek Nursery. Which nurseries carry this. I'm over here. I usually go to one of my favorites, which is Theodore Payne Foundation. There's El Nativo. It's great. It's a great way to do plant searches. Okay. Let's finish up here. So I would like to thank all of you for attending today's webinar on Turf Be Gone. Once again, if you do have any questions, submit them in the chat feature, but let's get to some of them right now. Mr. Joey, are you still there?
Hey Juan, how's it going?
How's it going, Evan? Okay, so, okay, everybody. Oh, I see a lot of questions that came into the chat feature. Fantastic. Wow. So I'm going to have a fun day answering this. So I'll make sure I address all these questions. I'm going to be emailing everybody that attended, and um, and if I don't get to your question today, don't worry, I will get to it, and I'll be responding to everybody's question. Let's see here. Wow. Okay.
Hey, Juan, I have a couple of questions just
Yeah, go
highlighted,
for it, Joy.
kind of popular.
Yeah.
We can ask you. So for the first one is, can you combine a chemical grass killer and solar to remove grass? Is that okay?
You know, of course you can. You can, you can combine. It's just a experiment out there, basically. But just once again, with any kind of chemicals, be careful. Make sure you read the labels. Wear your protective gear. Just know how long it's going to sit out there. Um, because it can be out there for a long time, especially if you're out there gardening and stuff. So just be careful with any kind of synthetic chemicals. Once again, you can always do eco-friendly and solarization. Go for Joy.
Do you have a suggestion for your ratios for your vinegar concoction to remove grass?
Oh, you know what? That's a good one. Every time I usually see it, you always if you go online, there's different mixtures that they use, whether it's 2 to 1. I mean, that 20% acidic vinegar is really strong. So I would make sure just refer online. Go online, take a look at some information on there, and I'm also going to look online because that's one thing that I make my own. I just kind of eye it, and I have a small spray bottle. I usually do myself. I usually put about a third or a quarter, and then the rest with some water and soap. So for me, it's just kind of I eye it. But if you want to know specifics, you can always go online and see what's recommended.
Perfect. I have a jumping around to another question. Looks like people are interested in using coffee grounds for a supplement for their soil. Do you
Yeah.
have any suggestions on which plants that I could use my coffee grounds on?
Well,
Is
I
it
mean,
better for potted plants or for fertilizer for ground plants?
it's good for anything really. I mean, it's just another type of soil conditioner. You're adding organic material. It's gonna make that, the more organics you add to soil, it makes it more acidic. It coffee grounds won't be a bad effect to any type of plant material. Can you use it in pots? Sure you can. If you're just gonna put it on top, it needs to break down just like anything else. One thing with any organic material that you add to the soil, especially when you start to incorporate it, it starts to it uses nitrates to break itself down, so it can actually start to utilize a lot of that nitrates in the soil to help itself break down. So that's one thing that you kind of sometimes have to be careful on. Is maybe add some organic fertilizer, something that's a little higher in nitrogen. One thing also when I'm planting, I try to use more of an organic fertilizer that's high in phosphorus because I want to promote roots. So yeah, that's one thing is it's coffee grounds is great to use. There's lot of information online, but one thing I do with my coffee grounds, they just go into my compost bin. I don't put them outside into the flower beds and stuff like that, or planter beds. I just put them straight into my composter.
Great tips. Thanks, Juan. Just one more question. It seems like Carapia has been a very popular
Yes.
ground cover. So one of the most popular questions were, is Carapia mowable? Can you mow it? And then is it also safe for pets and does it hold up for pets?
Nope. It's safe. It can take. It's not meant to be walked on and play sports on it constantly, right? It's a great ground. It gets rather dense. You can just let it grow in natural. It'll start to tuft up, or you can mow it. As you can see, that one picture from the homeowner, he mows his. When it does go into bloom. Um, Carapia actually, the company where we got our Carapia from, Carapia Direct, they actually have they hybridize another. It's Carapia, but this one has pink flowers. So it just depends on what you want to have out there. But uh, if you want, like I said, just go online, do some search. Well, I have to go on here. Carapia. There's one site there. Carapia. You can see some great information on Carapia, but I mean, they've used living walls. I mean, on slopes. It's it's fantastic. Water efficient ground cover. You can recreate on it. Sure, there's that pink variety, but they have a lot of answers. You can see this house. This is all Carapia. Just a great innovative ground cover that's out there. It is a little pricey though. That's one thing you have to look at as shopping in. I believe one tray of 72 plugs is about 140 bucks. But it does spread out. Okay, everybody. Once again, thank you for joining us today to visit or to look at more workshops. Once again, if you go to rightscapenow.com on events and classes, you can scroll down and you'll see the link to all the videos. I am going to be emailing everybody once again with all the slides and information and answer everybody's questions you might have. And if you have any specific questions, you can always email me at ask1@irwd.com. Once again, I'll try to get to you as soon as possible. But thanks everybody once again. It was a great workshop. I really enjoyed doing these, and hopefully we all, come out with a little something that we could put into practice at home. Okay, Joey. Thank you, Joey. Thank you, staff on the other side. And hopefully, oh, let's see. So I saw a question come in about buffalo grass. I will be addressing that in the email. So I will address buffalo grass, everybody. Thank you so much. Enjoy your afternoon and enjoy this beautiful weather. Hopefully we get some more rain coming in. Joey, thank you.
Thanks, Juan.
Bye, everybody.